Good evening. I'd like to call the May 3rd, 2021 meeting of the University Heights City Council to order. Mrs. Thomas, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Blankfeld.
Here.
Mrs. Berry.
Here.
Mrs. Pardee.
Here.
Mrs. Weiss.
Here.
Mr. Ertl.
Here.
Mr. Rock.
Here.
Mr. Gould.
Here.
Very good. Noting everyone is present, will all those who are able please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have a set of minutes from the April 19, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mr. Ertl to adopt the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Weiss. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mrs. Blankfeld.
Aye.
Mrs. Berry.
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee.
Pass.
Mrs. Weiss.
Aye.
Mr. Ertl.
Aye.
Mr. Rock.
Aye.
Mr. Gould.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is comments from the audience. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes for a total time allowed of 15 minutes per meeting unless otherwise permitted by Council Ordinance number 91-25. If there's anybody who would like to address the city this evening, please raise your hand. When I call on you, if you would state your name and address for the record, you may have a
I raised it.
speak. Thank you. I see Mr. Outman has raised his hand. Mr. Outman, you have the floor for up to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening and thank you. I'm Jim Outman. I'm a cowboy who runs a small ranch at 3781 Westwood Road on a plot of land that was granted to my forebears by Lord Jeffrey Amherst during the 7 Years' War of 1756 to 1763. In light of the recent background behind tonight's city council meeting and the proposed motion to censure the right?
Come, Libby. Yeah, we'll do it after.
One moment. Mr.
Yeah.
Greenfeld, could you mute your, could you please mute? We're getting interference from
Right?
Thomas. Could you mute? Thank you. Okay, Mr. Outman, you may proceed.
In light of the recent background behind tonight's city council meeting and the proposed motion to censure the mayor for using what some regard as intemperate language towards a citizen who barged into City Hall when it was officially closed, and words that others categorize as candor and truth in labeling, I would like to ask that any council member who has a plan, however tentative or theoretical, to run for mayor this November, identify herself or himself in advance of the vote so that citizens can understand the larger context of this resolution and vote for or against it. That is to say, I'm asking to let voters understand clearly the distinction between moral outrage over social manners and political maneuvering to put the incumbent mayor in a bad light in the forthcoming election over an issue that I understand has been formally nominated for the Miss Manners 2021 Northeast Ohio Civic Tribute Award.
Michael, come here.
remembering that anything
One
council,
moment, Mr. Altman. Whoever has Arlene's iPad, if you could please mute your window, please.
remembering that any,
Thank you. You may proceed, Mr. Altman. Mr. Altman, you are now muted. Mr. Altman, you are now muted. Mr. Altman, you've been muted. We need to unmute you. Mrs. Thomas, did you mute everyone to? Oh, here we go. It looks like you are now unmuted.
okay.
You may proceed.
Where was I? The
Something-
Northeast Ohio Civic Trivial Pursuit Award. And remembering that anything any council member does or does not care to mention about her personal political interest in this vote can and will be used against her, or did I say her or him, in the event that she pops up later collecting signatures on a petition to run for mayor. So I'm asking all members of the council to say out loud whether she or he has already taken a concrete step to launch a campaign for mayor. This is all in the name of transparency, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Altman. Is there anybody else here to address the city this evening? There are 60 participants on the call. I see Timothy and Sue Flick have raised their hand. Reset the clock here. You would start by stating your name and address for the record. You then have 5 minutes to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Sue and Tim Flick. We live at 3806 Clare Ridge Oval. We'd like to bring to the attention of the council a safety issue in front of our home. During the winter, we discovered a very large sinkhole where the edge of our property, the tree lawn, meets the street. It wasn't that large at the time. It was over the weekend and we saw this as a safety hazard. We had called the police and asked them to bring some barrels, what do you call it? Cones, safety cones, and they were great, responded to us very quickly, brought those cones out. Then on Monday, we contacted the service department and specifically Jeff in charge of that. We followed up with pictures we sent via email, and we were told that we would be put on the schedule to have this area repaired. The hole has now greatly increased in size. It's my husband.
Yeah, it's approximately 2.5 to 3 feet wide now.
And basically, the hole is eroding under the street. You can kind of see underneath where the pavement is tunneling under the road. So we're very concerned that the cones are not adequate. We have several young children on the street, lots of pedestrians, people walking dogs, baby carriages, as well as cars, that this could be a very serious, dangerous situation. So we wanted to bring it to the attention of the council that this really needs to be addressed, I would say immediately, so that no one is injured. Also, we're concerned about eroding where the tree on the tree lawn is, that it's also damaging the roots there.
And it actually goes underneath the street too. You can see a big hole underneath the street itself as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Very good. Did you have anything further, Mr. and Mrs. Flick?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Well, I will tell you, as the safety director, this is the first I've heard about this. I don't know when you spoke with Jeff. Did you mean that you spoke with Jeff today or prior to today? Because I believe he was out of the office today.
No, this was about maybe 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
And
Then recently we spoke with whoever, there's a lady that fills in for Jeff when he's not in.
it took my call last week.
Yeah, she took
Is
my
it
wife's call.
Terry? I'm sorry, I don't know her name, but we
That
did
was
call.
That was myself.
Oh,
And
sorry. Yes.
that's okay. And Mr. Pecori told me the same thing, that you're on the list.
So we think this list, someone needs to come out immediately and address this issue with at least covering this hole. Because honestly, if someone falls in or drives over this, it's going to be a big problem. So we wanted to make sure that you're aware of that.
Mayor, I'll forward you the email.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
And thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to address the city this evening? I see Ron Collier. Mr. Collier.
Okay. My name is Ronald Collier. I live at 4446 Silsby Road. I live right around the corner from, I don't know if I know you probably recently, Bar None Wine and Spirits just recently sold their property to the Green Road liquor store. And they're planning on turning into a wine bar. I'm concerned of the fact that it might attract a crowd that might cause issues in our city because of, I mean, in certain areas, like I know, like in downtown Cleveland, you have some issues with the clubs downtown and stuff like that. I'm just worried about the same thing happening in the neighborhood I live in.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Collier. I'm not sure if what you've heard is accurate or not. I understand that Bar None did not extend their lease with the plaza, and I understand further that the liquor store is expanding. I don't know anything about a wine bar. There was a
Yeah, they said it was in the Sun Press. I don't know. I mean, if it was 100% accurate, or I'm hearing it third hand from somebody, but I know that they were going to expand. But I'm just worried about the crime, people coming into our neighborhood who basically have evil intentions. Because I live over here, I live over right by the area, and I just worry about that.
Certainly. Okay. Well, then we'll look into it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would care to address the city this evening?
Yes, Mayor. Steve
Oh.
Wertheim.
I see Mr. Wertheim. You may go ahead, state your name and address for the record first.
Okay. My name is Stephen Wertheim. I live at 4355 Baintree Road, and I'm a board member of Reaching Heights, a local nonprofit that works to connect the community to our public schools with information and events. Just a couple things. One upcoming event is graduation. And while it will be streamed live on YouTube, it will take place at Heights High this year. It will be held outside this year at the Heights High Stadium on Thursday, June 3rd at 6 p.m. There also is going to be a pilot community learning center launch at Noble Elementary School in the next school year. The concept is to make the elementary school a hub for education and services to the Noble neighborhood. Ideally, each school in the district will serve the community in this way in the future. Noble Elementary was chosen as the pilot site because it has many current community partnerships that are thriving and strong, and a staff capable of taking on this project. One of the other things that I need to mention is the district will be offering a number of summer programs this year, many of them free. They're going to be offering a pre-K program called Tiger Cubs at our Garrity Elementary School, June 7th through July 1, and that'll go from 9 to 12 Tuesdays and Thursdays. There will also be, for the entire district, a free K-8 Tiger Camp at Heights High. The focus is on academic, social, and emotional well-being. There'll be 2 sessions, June 7th and July 10th, and July 6th through July 10th, and July 6th through July 30th, and that will go Monday through Friday. Also, for high school students, there will be summer school for credit recovery going from June 7th to July 1. It's for students to earn enough credits for graduation. Thank you. That's my report.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Wertheim. See several hands up in the participant log. I'll go next to Brian King. Mr. King, if you would state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Brian King. I live at 3818 Westwood Road. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'd like to thank the council for considering the resolution this evening for proclaiming May as Bike Month. As a daily rider and advocate for safe streets, I appreciate that the city has recognized Bike Month for several years now. Bicycling has a multitude of benefits, and it's important to remind everyone that it is a valid form of transportation. The Heights Bicycle Coalition will be holding a town hall tomorrow evening to discuss cycling in the Heights, along with events celebrating Bike Month. All are welcome to join. You can find more information at heightsbicyclecoalition.org or find us on Facebook or Instagram. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. King. I see Annie Muse Rollinson. You have the floor for up to 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record first.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Annie Rollinson. I live at 3949 Bushnell Road. I have been a citizen of University Heights for the last, 35, 40 years. My suggestion, I walk at the Walk Park, and I was very pleased when the park was built that it was named after Walter Stinson. I think that was a great honor. But inclined when walking through this fall, I noticed that I know our former mayor Infield did a lot of work to get that park done. So the idea come to me that maybe we could name the gazebo the Susan Infield gazebo. My question is, how would we go about doing it? Or if we could get some information on input on naming it, and who do I talk to about going about naming it to honor her, because I know she did a great job in getting the park together. And that was it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Rollinson. Mr. Cook, if you're listening, if you could follow up with Mrs. Rollinson about her suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if he's not hearing this for some reason, I will follow with Mr. Cook to follow up with you about your suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's see. I see Jeff. Is that you, Dr. Eckstein? Yes, if you could state your name and address for the record, you have the floor for up to 5 minutes. You seem to be muted, though. Can't hear you. Yeah, we can't hear you, Mr. Eckstein. I don't know if anybody else can. Perhaps you could try dialing in or muting and unmuting. Yeah,
I don't have him muted.
No, okay, he's muted. Now he's unmuted, maybe.
He's unmuted.
Okay. No, we can't hear you, sir. Sorry.
It must be on his end.
It must be. Maybe the microphone isn't turned on. He's got a note that he seems to be holding up. It says, move on. Okay. All right. As we move on, Mr. Eckstein, there is a dial-in option. Perhaps you could try dialing in. I see a couple more comments yet, so maybe we'll hear from you yet this evening. I see Mr. Porter is raising his hand. We will go to you next. Thank you. You may state your name and address for the record and have up to 5 minutes.
I'm Jeff Porter. I live at 2355 Miramar. And I'm responding to Mr. Altman's remarks. Mr. Altman, Mr. Brennan made a lot of disparaging remarks about my wife and I. And they weren't accurate. But more importantly, I don't know how the Mayflower has anything to do about how Mr. Brennan can speak to people.
Testing 1, 2. Okay.
And you know what? I find that offensive when you don't attend meetings and you weren't part of our conversations and you just make statements that are inaccurate as well as Mr. Brennan. And that's all I have to say right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Porter.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Mayor?
You sure can, Dr. Eckstein. So
I
if you'd like to go next, if you'd start by stating your name and address for the record, you may have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Eckstein. My address is 4321 University Parkway. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the council for hearing me. I'm calling in regards to the city's position on using residences as houses of worship. I know the position is strong that they're not allowed. And over the past several months, I've had conversations both with yourself and your administrative executive regarding the house on 4316 University Parkway. Each night and morning, these streets are congested by multiple cars stretching from Bromley to the end of the block. These cars on occasion now have blocked driveways partially. There has been a minor fender bender with one of the members hitting a RV of one of my neighbors and then asking why he parked the car there. But it came to a head to me last night when I happened to be in the bedroom with my wife and my window was open, and lo and behold, a stranger walked from the elementary school through my property, my neighbor's property, through our property, across the street, and entered the residence house of worship. The question I have for this council, and I've talked with the mayor several times.
Hello? Can I call you back in a little while? I'm watching a Zoom.
Yeah, Mrs. Derry, could you please mute your screen?
I can barely hear you.
Thank you. Mr. Eckstein, please, or Dr. Eckstein, please continue.
Yeah, so my question to you, Mr. Mayor, and the council, we've talked over the past week, why now that trespassers, and my neighbor's trespassers, we've had these events, why hasn't the attorney for the city executed a cease and desist of this property across the street in the past 12 to 16 weeks? And I may be overestimating the time. That's
Mayor, I can comment on that. I was asked late last week by the mayor to send a cease and desist letter to 4316, and that letter will go out this week. I can assure you of that. The city's position is that that use that you're describing is not permitted, and there are strategies in place that begin with the cease and desist letter to enforce the city's ordinances, and it is my understanding that the administration will seek to do so.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. I appreciate that. All right, that is my question. Looks like it's being addressed, and that's it for me tonight, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Eckstein.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else who would care to address the city this evening?
Never mind. I don't know why I was thinking of something. So that's my fault.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Collier. I see in the participant list that Wynn Weiser has her hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't relish what council has to
Your name and
do.
address for the record.
I'm sorry. My name is Winifred Weiser. I live at 2177 Jackson Boulevard. I'm a 30-plus year resident of University Heights, been involved in various committees on the city over the years. I don't relish what council is considering to do tonight. I do think that there has to be some level of professionalism from all of our elected officials. I fully realize that constituents can be problematic and sometimes are. However, I think that if you decide to run for an elected office, you're held to a higher standard. What I'm really concerned about is having a mayor, if it's true, that would say to a realtor who is attempting to close on a deal for a person to move into this city that, and if the quote was correct, if people don't like your rules, they need to live in another city. If that's right, that is very troubling and very problematic. And if that was the case, I certainly hope that that would never happen again. As the mayor of the city, it should be more welcoming than that. Thank you.
Thank you. I never said anything of the sort, but thank you. I appreciated the opportunity to clarify that. Thank you, Mrs. Weiser, or excuse me, Ms. Weiser. I see Boris Karglitsky has his hand up. Sir, you may state your name and address for the record and have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, this is Boris Kagarlitsky. I live at 2254 Renford in University Heights, Ohio. I just want to say for the record, Mr. Mayor, that, your action last year cost me significant financial loss. When we wanted to do a project and the COVID was starting happening, with the way you ran the ARB meetings and the delays that resulted in, cost me significant amount of money. And unfortunately, when I reached out to you to address it, I did not feel welcomed at all. You stated that I'm wasting your time. This is not something that an elected official should ever say to a constituent. I voted for you, I supported you, and I was quite alarmed that this was the case. So I hope that, some actions will be taken about this. That's all.
Thank you. The delays were by the state of Ohio. We were prohibited from holding meetings.
Well, the state of Ohio allowed the electronic meetings. I actually reached out to the Attorney General.
Right, ultimately. And then once we did, we scheduled that meeting, and we didn't even schedule it on the regular Passover date it was for it to accommodate you. So you're welcome for that. Are there any other comments here? Okay. I know there's several screens here, so I'm going to scroll through and make sure I don't see anybody raising their hand on the camera. Okay. Very good. Appears that everybody who had wanted to speak has spoken, and we are at the conclusion then of comments from the audience, which then takes us to the communications from the mayor and the taking of action. 1 week ago, on April 26, 2021, I issued the following apology statement to all members of City Council, to Cleveland.com, the Sun Press, and Cleveland Jewish News. All media outlets published this in full last week. I also said then I would read the statement into the record at tonight's meeting. I will do that now. For immediate release, April 26, 2021, statement from Mayor Michael Dillon Brennan. I endeavor to be everyone's mayor and to build a diverse and inclusive community. Among the responsibilities of elected office comes maintaining a high standard. Regarding a recent phone conversation with a resident, I have fallen short of this standard. I regret this incident occurred. I regret it has become a distraction from the issues our city faces, the work we are doing, and the community we are building. Ultimately, I am responsible for this distraction, and for this, I am sorry. I offer my sincere apology to every resident of University Heights. It's incumbent upon a leader to acknowledge when they are wrong. The language I used was inflammatory, and I regret using it. This is not the tone that I've endeavored to set. In this instance, my words did not meet the standard our community expects or deserves, and for this, I am sorry. I then concluded the apology statement by indicating as follows. This statement will be read into the record at the next City Council meeting on Monday, May 3rd. This apology statement has now been read into the record. I have no further comment on this issue. This concludes my report. Turning to the agenda for the evening, under Robert's Rules of Order, it is not appropriate for me to preside over item A of the agenda. Accordingly, I pass the gavel to the Vice Mayor for this item. I will resume chairing the meeting with the next agenda item, item B.
Mayor, if I could interject, the Vice Mayor has asked me to read the resolution by title only and then turn the floor over to her. So with that, I will proceed to a reading of resolution 2021-14, a resolution to censure Mayor Michael Dillon Brennan for use of offensively coarse, unwarranted, and inappropriate language, and for conduct unbecoming of the office of mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McConville. Before I actually read the resolution into record, I do want to say a few words before that. You know, it truly pains me to have to present this resolution, but after multiple outbursts, the council must do this. Elected officials are servant leaders. Elected officials should be examples to the community. Elected officials should be held to the highest possible standards. Additionally, servant leaders need humility. Apologizing for actions that are deemed wrong by others can be rectified, but doubling down on transgressions cannot be tolerated. Council and the mayor should work in harmony as a team. That does not mean we cannot disagree, but it needs to be done respectfully. I will not stand by when my constituents and colleagues are not respected, and that is why this is presented today. Reading the resolution now. Whereas censure is the formal expression of strong disapproval and denouncement of the actions or conduct of an elected official. Whereas censure has rarely been utilized by council for the city of University Heights. Whereas in his statement issued on April 26, 2021, Mayor Michael Dillon Brennan admitted to the use of inflammatory language in a recent telephone conversation with a University Heights resident. Whereas on December 7th, 2021, in an apparent display of anger, Mayor Michael Dillon Brennan used offensively coarse, unwarranted, and inappropriate language during a council executive session. Whereas during a council meeting on December 21st, 2020, Mayor Michael Dillon Brennan again used offensively coarse, unwarranted, and inappropriate language in apparent display of anger in response to comments made by a member of council during the council meeting. Whereas the mayor has exhibited a pattern of behavior in which he is apparently unable to control his temper and in which he resorts to the use of offensively coarse, unwarranted, and inappropriate language. Whereas the mayor's offensively coarse outbursts have been highly disrespectful toward members of council and toward the citizens of the city of University Heights. Whereas when confronted with his behavior during the council meeting on April 19th, 2021, and when during that same meeting, given the opportunity to apologize or at least acknowledge his misconduct, the mayor refused and even suggested that his offensively coarse outbursts were acceptable and justifiable. Whereas the mayor's failure, when given the opportunity during public meetings to acknowledge and apologize for his misconduct, reveals poor judgment and a troubling lack of self-awareness. Whereas it is critical that the public's business be conducted within the bounds of decency and decorum, and in a manner that is respectful to others, even in instances where parties may disagree. Whereas the city's residents should both expect and demand that their public officials, in the performance of their duties, conduct themselves with a degree of professionalism, composure, dignity, courtesy, and propriety that reflects well upon the city, and that this is consistent with the city's high standards. Whereas Mayor Michael Dillon Brennan's conduct fails to meet the standards of the city and fails to comport with the dignity of his office. Whereas City Council deems it necessarily to formally condemn the actions of the mayor and to express its strong disagreement with and disapproval of his conduct. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of University Heights, Ohio, that Section 1, Mayor Michael Dillon Brennan is hereby censured for a pattern of behavior in which the mayor expresses himself through sudden outbursts characterized by offensively coarse, unwarranted, and inappropriate language while conducting the business of the city in 1, the executive session of December 7th, 2020, 2, the council meeting of December 21st, 2020, and 3, in a phone call from a resident on April 14th, 2021. Finally, Section 2. The council finds and determined that all formal actions of this council relating to the adoption of this resolution have been taken at an open meetings of this council, and that deliberations of this council and of its committees resulting in such formal action took place in meetings open to the public in compliance with all statutory requirements, including the requirements of Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. if there are any comments before we make a motion.
I'd like to make a comment.
Oh, that was public comment, my bad.
This is just for council members.
Mr. Order, why don't you go first and I'll go after you.
All right, Sean. Simply, I think council would be better served if we focused on the more substantive issues at hand. That's all I have to say.
Okay. And I don't have for this, but I will say that this is something that I thought long and hard over. I don't like this. I don't like that we have to do this. But that comes with the role of being on city council. We were elected to hold a higher standard and to hold our administration accountable. Most of you know, the council, especially myself, agrees with the mayor 95% of the time. And there's that 5% or 10% that we don't. And that's good government. And this is something, the use of language that I did not agree with. And I spoke to the mayor about my feelings towards this, and spoke at length about how, that's something you just don't do. And he agreed and didn't deny the language. So I did not hear the call, but we, both the resident and the mayor, the language was used. That's something that is not to be used. And was very clear that this really makes my job easy to vote on this if there's no public apology. And Mayor, I will thank you for putting that public apology. And I think it was very heartfelt because you just made my job more difficult. And that's a good thing because that means I had to think about it more and more. But it is at this point that I just don't think it's appropriate to use that type of language the multiple times in this type of setting. And it really pains me that I have to do this today, but that comes with the territory. So I am prepared to vote on this today.
I just want to say that I also want to follow behind John and say that I believe that the mayor's heart is in the right place most of the time. I believe that he does love University Heights and he wants to do the best for it and he loves his staff. But I do think that we cannot, especially for our children, say that it's okay to use profane language. You know, we have to set an example for the next generation. And I just wanted to say that.
Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor, may I make a statement?
Sure.
Thanks. I'll echo the sentiments of my colleagues and reframe them as my own. As late as last week, my conversations with the mayor personally were positive. I have been in the past an enthusiastic supporter of the mayor, of his vision of the city. I've worked collaboratively with him on issues of mutual importance. And, I like the guy. But my duty here is not to the man, but to the office and to the citizens which we serve. I think it's important to lay on the record some of what I've done in preparation to vote today. In an effort to know more about what transpired with the Porters, I spoke directly with them. And I heard their frustrations with the city's response to the issues on Miramar. Many of those concerns, especially those related to the building department, have been echoed by this council in the past. I heard from the Porters, a family who is exasperated with the issue that they're facing and who is exasperated by our response as a city.
The mayor told us that we may understand his reaction if this council even began to know what the Porters put the city through, what they put the city employees through. So I spoke to multiple city employees. One described their interaction with the Porters as collaborative and productive. One was not aware of any abuse of police calls, services, or personnel. One was exhausted and depleted after their call with the Porters because of the overwhelming amount of information, the intensity in which it was shared, and the requested resolutions from the Porters. But no employee described abuse or mistreatment by the Porters. Last week I reached out to the mayor. I spoke with him directly. We had a candid conversation, I feel. He expressed and explained to me his view of what happened, and I think I was equally as candid with you, with him, about my feelings on the words that he used. For me, this censure resolution addresses an escalation and continuation of unacceptable behavior, unacceptable words by the mayor. It started an executive session, it progressed to an open meeting of this council, and it's culminated most recently with a conversation with a citizen. And it was only after the censure resolution was announced that the mayor issued an apology. His initial response in the meeting was, I said lots of things to you on that call, and I stand by each and every one of them. Even then, the apology that the mayor has made to every resident does not address the Porters specifically, and as of late this afternoon, he has not reached out to the Porters to apologize for the words he used on that call. The mayor's described what's transpired as a distraction. It is, but for me, it's more than that. It's a liability. I've spoken to the law director about the potential challenges that some of these words put the city in. The Porters fear that the BZA process will be used against them. One person who is not the Porters has requested that the city appoint a special prosecutor to investigate the mayor's statements. I did listen to the recording of the mayor's call with the Porters. It's grainy, it's not a direct recording. Some details were different than were reported in the paper. The mayor didn't answer the phone. I know who you are, and you're the biggest jerk in University Heights. But that word was used, as were other words. Neither did the mayor threaten to pass variances against the Porters, but he did suggest that BZA might grant a variance to the grants to remedy a potential setback violation related to their attached garage. All to say, I wanted the citizens I represent to understand the work that I did in coming to my decision on this. I've concluded that the Porters were frustrated and acted as such. We on council work for courts and governments and schools and consumer-facing businesses. We all deal with angry and frustrated people in these professional roles. As council members, we field angry and frustrated calls from citizens. Sometimes we share those feelings with each other as colleagues, but we don't get to swear at or insult in response. The mayor has acknowledged that he would not accept that response from his employees, nor will we accept that response from him. And because of that escalation, because of that continuation, I feel that this resolution is appropriate, and I will vote in favor of it. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Are there any other comments for council before we make a motion? Okay, so I will make a motion to censure Mayor Michael Dillon Brennan for use of offensively coarse, unwarranted, and inappropriate language, and for the conduct unbecoming of the office of mayor.
I'll second.
Kelly, should we?
Yeah, you want to call for the roll?
Yes.
Mrs. Blankfield,
Aye.
Mrs. Berry,
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee,
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Erdl,
No.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Mr. Gould,
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is Agenda Item B, Resolution 2021-15, proclaiming May 2021 Bike Month in the City of University Heights and declaring an emergency. We'll go ahead and read the resolution for the record. A resolution proclaiming May 2021 Bike Month in the City of University Heights and declaring an emergency. Whereas bicycling is a socially healthy, green, and economical mode of travel. And whereas since 2010, the United States Department of Transportation has adopted a policy stating that walking and bicycling are considered as equals with other transportation modes and not an afterthought in roadway design. And whereas the state of Ohio recognizes bicycles as valid vehicles for use on all University Heights roads. And whereas University Heights streets and buildings are ideally arranged in a compact, well-connected pattern, making it easy to walk and bike to businesses, schools, and recreational and cultural facilities. And whereas University Heights continues to assess its transportation network and connections to other cities, finding grants for projects that improve the safety and comfort of bicyclists, such as the recently completed bike lanes on Warrensville Center Road. And whereas educating cyclists on the proper and safe operation of bicycles and motorists on how to properly share roads with bicyclists, including our school children, is important to ensure the safety and well-being of all. And whereas the League of American Bicyclists, the Heights Bicycle Coalition, and Transportation and Fitness Bicyclists in University Heights and other cities are promoting greater public awareness of cycling during the month of May through events such as Bike to Work Week on May 17th through 23rd, Bike to Work Day on Friday, May 21st, 2021, and Bike to School Day on May 5th, 2021, which brings attention to the importance of creating safe routes to schools. And whereas the annual Ride of Silence will take place in Greater Cleveland on Wednesday, May 19th, 2021, in which University Heights will participate with hundreds of other cities internationally to honor those killed or injured while riding on public streets, and can be observed by riding solo, riding with household members, or by joining participants who will ride from John Carroll University in University Heights towards different locations in the Heights area. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of University Heights, Ohio, that Section 1, the Mayor and City Council do hereby proclaim May 2021 to be Bike Month in the City of University Heights. The city encourages all residents to review the laws and regulations governing bicycle safety and to use a bicycle for transportation, especially for trips within the City of University Heights. Section 2, notice of passage of this resolution shall be given by publishing the title and abstract of its contents prepared by the law director once in one newspaper of general circulation in the City of University Heights and on the city's social media. Section 3, this resolution is hereby declared to be an emergency measure immediately necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, and safety of the inhabitants of the City of University Heights. Such emergency being the need to join with the other communities in this celebration and the need to proclaim Bike Month and related events on a timely basis. Wherefore, provided it receives the affirmative vote of 5 or more of the members elected or appointed to this council, this resolution shall take effect and be in force immediately upon its passage. Otherwise, it shall take effect and be in force from and after the earliest time allowed by law. Is there a motion to adopt?
Also move, Mayor.
Motion by Mrs. Blankfeld. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Berry. Is there any discussion? Just for clarification, we are declaring this to be an emergency measure. Mrs. Blankfeld, your motion is on emergency. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Mayor, I note that our charter does allow resolutions to be adopted on one reading where they don't have the impact of law, so to speak. So You can suspend and adopt if you want to, but I don't think you need to by charter with this type of resolution.
Okay. Okay. Well, that said, Mr. McConville, should we strike section 3 and just go with sections 1 and 2 and do the by regular motion?
Tomato, tomato.
Okay. Is there a motion to amend the resolution to strike section 3?
Element.
Okay.
And there might be motion to accept that. Yes, please.
All right. I'm sorry. You broke up a little bit there. Could you restate your motion, please?
Yes, I said I will amend my motion to accept that. We won't do it on emergency, that as it's just a resolution, as
Okay.
Mr. McConville suggested.
Very good. Is there also a motion then to amend the resolution to strike section 3?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion to amend to strike section 3 by Mrs. Weiss. Second to that motion.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Gould. All right, that motion will take precedence then. And is there any discussion on striking section 3? If not, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll on striking section 3?
Mrs. Blankfeld,
Aye.
Mrs. Berry,
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee,
Aye.
Ms. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Erdl,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Mr. Gould.
Aye.
Okay, section 3 is stricken. We had a prior motion then by Mrs. Blankfeld to adopt not on emergency. Do you renew that motion based upon the amendment?
I do.
Very good. Mrs. Berry, do you renew your second?
I do.
Okay, very good. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Mrs. Blankfeld,
Aye.
Mrs. Berry,
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee,
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Erdl,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Mr. Gould.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Motion carries. Resolution is adopted. We move on to item C, ordinance 2021-16, adopting the City of University Heights Employee Policies and Procedures Manual and declaring an emergency. This is on first reading. This is a product of administrative effort, primarily by myself, Susan Drucker, Dennis Kennedy, and our Labor Council, John Osu and his associate, Jason Hartzell. So this was before the Committee of the Whole. Last week, there was one section that we had looked to revise, which has been revised and is as revised now as included in the packet. This is on first reading. It will come back then for a future reading. Is there anything anybody would care to add at this point? If not, we will consider this matter heard on first reading, and we'll proceed then to item D. Excuse me. Motion to approve the modification agreement submitted on behalf of the Auditor of State's Office and James G. Zupka CPA Inc. for the city financial audit for the year ending December 31, 2020, with an increased amount of $1,400 to cover an additional 20 hours of field work. The modified contract amount for the 2020 financial audit not to exceed $26,250. Mr. Kennedy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is for a $1,400 increase to the contract that was recently approved for Zupka CPA Incorporated. They're going to need to do some more testing in the building department just because of the amount of staff turnover that occurred during 2020. It's not indicative of any problem. They just feel the need to, from a compliance standpoint, do 20 more hours of testing. So we're asking to get the contract amended to add $1,400 to the spending authority.
Very good. Any discussion? And if not, is there a motion?
Also move, Mayor.
Very good. We have a motion by Mrs. Blankfeld to approve the modification agreement submitted on behalf of the Auditor of State's Office and James G. Zupka CPA Inc. for the city's financial audit in the year ending December 31, 2020, with an increased amount of $1,400 to cover an additional 20 hours of field work. The modified contract amount for the 2020 financial audit not to exceed $26,250. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Pardee. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mrs. Blankfeld,
Aye.
Mrs. Berry,
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee,
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Erdl,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Mr. Gould.
Aye.
A motion carries. Next is item E, a motion to advertise for the 2021 sewer improvement project. Mr. Cheney, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This project is for sewer repairs on Cedar Road. They were discovered with our annual TVing program that we had last year. The service director also has been having trouble with some of these areas. They're near Cranston and Blockway on Cedar Road. It is imperative we do this year prior to the repaving job. The repaving job is supposed to start, later this summer. We need to go out for bids for this project. It's estimated at approximately $80,000. And again, this is just to advertise for bids. Once we get the bids, I'll be back at council for an award.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Is there a motion to approve advertising for the 2021 sewer improvement project?
So moved, Mayor.
Okay, a motion by Mrs. Pardee. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Berry. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mrs. Blankfeld,
Aye.
Mrs. Berry,
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee,
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Erdl,
Aye.
Mr. Gould,
Aye.
Mr. Rock.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Next item is item F, motion to hold an executive session immediately following the regular meeting for the purpose of discussing personnel, legal, and/or real estate matters. The administration has nothing to bring to the council at this time in executive session. Moving on, we'll go to director's reports. Finance, Mr. Kennedy.
We just finished the month of April, so we're in the process of starting the work to close that month. So I will be getting those monthly financial reports out to everybody in the next week to 10 days. Other than that, no report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Director of Law, Mr. McConville.
Just briefly, Mayor, we did meet with the Citizens Committee on Policing Practices to present redline versions of Lexipol policies. I think we had a constructive meeting. There was a lot of good dialogue and participation from members of the community, but I don't want to steal any more of Ms. Berry's thunder, so I will leave it at that. And that concludes my report.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. McConville. Public safety. I know Chief Rogers has been excused from the meeting, but Lieutenant Kinley is present. Lieutenant, do you have a report? Well,
nothing to report, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Lieutenant Kinley. Public safety, fire. Chief Perko has been excused from the meeting, but Captain Boylan is present. Captain Boylan, do you have anything to report?
Mayor, we have nothing to report.
Okay. Thank you, Captain Boylan. Next is service. Mr. Corney's been excused from the meeting and there is no report. Next is building. Mr. White. Is Mr. White present? He may not be, and I don't believe he had a report. So it would appear that he is not.
Mayor, can I say something about Mr. White very quickly? I just have to tell you, there've been, I just want to let council and the community know, there've been a number of issues that have come my way in the last 2 weeks, and Mr. White has been very attentive and
I'm sorry, what was that?
Mr. White has been very attentive and resolved the issues that have come his way. So I just wanted to let everybody know.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mrs. Weiss. City engineer, Mr. Cheney.
No report this evening, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Communications and civic engagement.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Mosaic is printed. It should be arriving in mailboxes this week. Advanced copies are in most of the stores and restaurants across town. The rest of them will get out there tomorrow or Wednesday. Secondly, Cleveland Jewish News has a special issue where they focus on the Heights, so Cleveland Shaker and University Heights have a couple articles in there. I invite you to check that out. And finally, if you haven't seen it yet, so you got some good coverage on Channel 19 last night, and the links are on all of our social media sites. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Cook. Economic development, Mrs. Strucker.
Yes, just to let council know that the RFP for the rewrite for the planning and zoning code update has been advertised, and the deadline for submissions is May 14th. So I will keep council apprised as to the responses we receive.
Thank you. Okay, we turn now to reports from standing committees, building and housing, Mrs. Plainfield. You are muted.
No report this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Plainfield. Community outreach, Mrs. Purdy.
No report, Mayor, but I would like to ask you a question. For the Tech Advisory Committee, we had discussed REA and Associates taking on the work of doing the strategic review of the city's technology situation and needs. And I was wondering what the status of that is and who the point person is so that someone on the tech committee can liaise with that point person.
We're still waiting for REA and Associates to schedule their first meeting with us. I have made a couple of inquiries about that, and we have gotten nowhere. Thank you. Economic Development, Mr. Rock.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Finance, Mrs. Weiss.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Recreation, Mr. Ertl.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Safety, Mrs. Berry.
On April the 28th, the Citizens Advisory Committee met, and I want to thank Mr. McConville for an excellent report, along with the chief and Lieutenant MacArthur, for all their support that they gave to the citizens and addressing all their recommendations. It is now in the G, it's available for us to review. Is that the G drive, or where is the report for them to be able to look at?
It is on the shared Google
Yes.
Drive. Yes.
Right. I would encourage you to look at it. He's made he's brought the use of the Lexapol that the chief and compared it with the recommendations of the citizens. And we will have another meeting on May 25th, where after we've had a chance to review it, and I would encourage all our council people to review it and hear where we are in our use of force. I think we as a city should be proud of our police department and how cooperative they have been in addressing the concerns of the committee.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Berry. Service and Utilities, Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mayor. No report at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gould. Committee of the Whole, Mrs. Weiss.
No report.
Okay. Thank you. We are now at the end of the agenda. Motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mayor.
Motion by Mr. Rock. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Thomas, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Blankfeld,
Aye.
Mrs. Berry,
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee,
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Ertl,
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Mr. Gould.
Aye.
Very good. We are adjourned. Everyone be well and be safe. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.